All right, Jason, welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here. I want to take a minute to read your bio, which I believe is a work of art. I heard it last night. I've heard it a few times, and every time I'm like, how long? Who wrote this brilliant piece? So
AI wrote it on them.
Oh, AI is, my husband's obsessed with AI.
I'm sure,
right now.
yeah.
Okay, so what does an award-winning entrepreneur, a TEDx speaker, a bacotarian, that's a vegetarian who still eats bacon, a funky sock lover, a former rapper who opened for the Wu-Tang Clan, yes, really, and previously a 332-pound man who has since lost over 130 pounds despite his affinity for bacon have in common? They're all the same guy. And I want to point out that the award-winning entrepreneur, it's not like Best of Boston. It's like, or these local magazine awards. You have won awards. You did something with NASA. Yeah. You did, some really cool stuff.
I've been very lucky. I stumbled into situations that I should have never been in, probably ever. And I'm super lucky for that.
And you grew up in a salon.
I did grow up in a salon. My mom was a nail tech from the time I was probably, I think like 6 or 7 years old. She got into the beauty industry. And so I've watched her go through, beauty school, and I've watched her work in other salons. I've watched her open her own salon. I've watched the change of when she used to work in like this posh Park Avenue salon in Winter Park, Florida, charging $100 for a set of nails, and then seeing the entire industry shift where people were charging $19.99 for nails. Watching her trying to recalibrate, like, how do I get people to realize that, these organic and safe products I'm using versus it was a whole thing. And I got to witness it firsthand.
There's a new shift going on right now because there was just a study published about the damage of the UV from people doing gel nails. Yep. So there's this big thing going on in the spa world of like, what's going on with nails? How can we, get sunscreen or the gloves or whatever, because it's actually damaging on a cellular level is what this study came out to say. So there's going to be a lot more shifts that we see in that aspect of our industry as well.
Good. I'm glad they're paying attention to that.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, just to, give context for our listeners. You have all these cool things that you've done. You've been in the right place at the right time. What do you focus on now? What is your passion? What do you do to help others?
I love that question because to me, I'm lucky enough that for me, it extends to my life in general. So my life and business aren't separate. Mm-hmm. So I always say I have a one-line life plan, which also happens to be my one-line business plan, is to leave everybody I meet with at least 5% more joy than when I found them. So that could be here in this conversation. It could be a barista at a Starbucks. It can be the TSA agent, or it can be my coaching clients or the companies that I speak for or my book or whatever it is. As long as there's an opportunity to hopefully increase people's joy and remove their suffering or reduce their suffering, that's what I want to do in the world always.
I love that so much. And I would say mission accomplished.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Every time you are such a light. I've only hung out with you a couple of times, but what I notice about you is that you recognize and see everybody. You make everybody in the room feel important, whether you've just met them or you've known them for years. And so you have just really this magnetic energy. And I do believe that it comes from that drive of wanting to leave every single person you meet with joy. It's a really beautiful, beautiful mission. And I feel like that could be adopted by so many spa owners as well, because we are helping. I like to say that we're in the business of confidence, of helping individuals feel better about themselves. And when you're confident, when you have that relaxation, when you have that time for self-care, and when you also just feel good and look good, the way that you show up in the world is a different way. So
absolutely,
for us to make that focus of how can I leave this person with more joy? What a beautiful. It also kind of takes some pressure off, doesn't it?
100% it does. And it's so funny you say that because there's so much baked in there. And I appreciate all the things you just said because there's so much juicy stuff we can play with there. But like the whole idea of me wanting to leave people with more joy, and even what you said, feeling seen or feeling heard in front of me, it's because I didn't feel that growing up. And I don't want other people to feel unseen or unheard. And so that kind of like wounding and stuff that I went through is now something that I'm channeling into a gift to try to make sure other people have that. And so it's the same thing with spa owners and anybody else who's in this business, which I totally believe spa owners are actually have a confidence business disguised as a spa, right?
Yes.
And so the more you keep that in mind, I absolutely believe it takes the pressure off, because it takes the focus from me, the spa owner, the ego of me, the spa owner, and instead turns that outwards into service for the person in front of me. And I don't know about you, but I will get out of bed more for the service of others than I will the ego of myself. And so that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, it's accountability too.
Yeah.
But it's, and I think what I want to add is like, all right, yes, we're business owners. Yes, this is your livelihood. But the energy that you bring to it, when you focus on that, the money follows. And so if you were to get out of bed and only focus on, I need to make, 330, revenue per hour per room, if I want to hit this, and you're only focused on that and not focused on providing joy or sending joy to your client or whatever that level of service is, whatever your word that you want to, it brings a completely different energy and different vibe. And it really, I think, brings more struggle if you're only focused on that aspect. Spoken from someone who is a lover of spreadsheets and numbers and systems and all of those things, which are I don't know how to function without Google Calendar and a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But I believe, so those are important, but really carrying that energy and the intention is so vital. Yeah. That brings me to, something that I see a lot in our spa owners. They're these incredible women. They have so much talent. They have so much to offer and share with the world. And they are not always able to see that in themselves.
Right.
And, my husband likes to say that I make grown women cry for a living. Because
but in a good way.
In a good way. I get straight to it. But it's like when I can talk to somebody and kind of call them on their stuff and they actually take action on it and they see what they are capable of, it's me giving them confidence so that they show up bigger in the world.
Yeah.
So how do you share with your clients? How did you do it with yourself? How did you build that worthiness feeling? Because that's really what it boils down to, right?
Totally. 100%. Yeah. And so I think that's the interesting thing, is that one of the things I tell people when I teach them about coaching, like whether they're leaders or they're coaches who just want to do more with coaching, is kind of a funny, kind of counterintuitive thing, is you don't have to answer the question that the client asks. And that may sound like, oh, that means you don't listen to the client. It's like, no. We want to listen to the question behind the question, right?
Yes.
And so the question I have on top of worthiness stuff is, why are we focusing on worthiness at all? Worthiness is a completely self-constructed thing. And so now we've set a fire so that we can prove we know how to put out fires. Right?
Okay. So tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So if we can shift out of worthiness, because again, the worthiness is a question of me and the ego, right? Am I good enough? Can I do this? All these things, which I get, they come up. They still come up for me. This is like, I'm not immune to any of the things that we're going to be talking about today. I just have become more adept at navigating them when they come up. And to me, the antidote to worry about worthy is to shift from worthiness to willingness. Right? Am I willing to test this? Am I willing to see what I'm capable of? Am I willing to ask for support? Am I willing to fail? Am I willing to reinvent? That takes worthiness out of the question.
I love that.
There's more intention. There's more volition. There's more free will involved to me in willing than worthy, which is somehow bestowed upon me from the outside. And worthiness is one of those things that's kind of like love. It's you're looking for a finite answer to an infinite question. It just doesn't exist.
Words are so important, aren't they?
Huge.
And I remember when I first kind of got into this world of coaching and learning about online business and all of that, I had a coach that was really just drilling it in that not, I have to go to work today, I get to go to work today.
Yeah.
Like these little language shifts that are, just huge in what they can do. And that going from worthiness to willingness is one of those. I love that so much. And it's, are you willing to do this for your family? Are you willing to do this for yourself? Are you willing to step out of your comfort zone? Because that's what a business is. You have to put yourself out there on social media. You have to go to these networking events. You have to share that you're selling something, right? You can't just be behind the computer the whole time.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing. And you mentioned this right in the beginning. Like, I really love that the first thing you said was that spa owners in the confidence business. Like, I so believe that. And so what I really invite people to consider is whatever your title is right now that you think you are. So let's say for your listeners, spa owners, to drop that label. You're no longer a spa owner. You are an activist. Right? Because when you are an activist for something, you don't have time to worry about what people might think, or is this going to be something people agree with, or is my family not going to understand it? You know, if you're truly an activist, and I dated a woman back in the day who was a big time animal activist. So she would go out in front of the circus when the circus came in town and would hold out, you know, signs and hand out pamphlets, and families are walking by like, get a real job. What the hell's wrong with you? I'm just trying to take my kid to the circus. And then I would see her and she would come back from all of that. And I'd say, how do you do that? Like, that would be, I can't, like, my heart just closes down thinking about people yelling at me when I'm doing this thing.
Right. I mean, gosh.
Why, how wouldn't you, right? And her response was, they're yelling at me and the elephants are still being mistreated. I don't have time to worry about the father yelling at me that I'm picketing in front of the circus, because what I'm here to do, what I'm put on this earth to do, is to make these animals get proper treatment. And so that's easy when we look at, you know, activism around social injustice or around, you know, animal activism or whatever else. It sounds easy. We think that there's no such thing as activism outside of these big social causes. But what you're doing as a spa owner and installing confidence in people's lives, that is your activism. And so if you really start adopting that you are an activist who is disguised as a spa owner, then the mindset changes and you really don't have as much time to worry about those things.
Okay, so I love that. And the reality of life still comes into play, right? Like I have 2 small kids, and sometimes I walk downstairs and it's like crying and poop and God knows what, right?
Yeah.
So,
and that's just your husband. That's not even the kids, right? It's just crazy.
Well, I'm going to tell him you said that.
No, please don't.
But it's what I'm getting at is that, like, there's so much in life that can throw us. It's easy to be like, okay, I'm going to do my morning meditation or read my book or do all whatever the, you know, 15 million things we're supposed to do in the morning to get grounded for the day. And we don't even always have the time for that. Right. So what do you do, or how have you been able to really adapt this and maintain this mindset shift for, you know, longevity for a long period of time when the sucky stuff happens, or when, you know, something comes up that really just throws you off course? It's like, you know what? Why don't I just get a job? You know, this is hard. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned poop, because one thing I talk about is how I felt like in 2013, 14-ish, I just really kind of started my coaching business. 10 years this year that I've been coaching and speaking. So this is like right at the beginning.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I remember this moment where I felt like I was drowning in my own feces. But I'm going to tell you what feces means. Feces is an acronym that I've created.
Okay.
And it's Fetal Entrepreneur Couch Syndrome.
Okay.
And the symptoms include being in a ball on the couch in the fetal position, questioning all of your life choices and wondering why you don't just get a job so you can afford all the really important luxuries like toilet paper, and your family will actually finally get what you're doing for a living. It's so easy to go into those places. And I had this moment where I was trying to build my coaching business. I was doing all the things I thought I was supposed to be doing. It wasn't picking up nearly as fast as I thought it was supposed to go, because of course I'm arrogant enough to think that I know how it's supposed to unfold at all times and it must happen on my timeline. But regardless, I was there.
The Jason Goldberg.
The Jason Goldberg. Yes. Very pretentious. And I remember going on to Career Builder and just scrolling through on Career Builder, just laying on the couch completely dejected. Like, you know what? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe passion's not enough. Maybe I need to go back to tech and go back to IT consulting where I was making good money, even though my soul was dying every day. And so to be able to sit in that and to recognize that there's a beautiful opportunity in that to start challenging those thoughts, challenging those beliefs, and to ask myself, is it really that I don't have what it takes? Or is it that I'm trying to operate from a mind that's so sped up, I can't see the opportunities in front of me, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're driving and you get lost, you don't mash the gas pedal. right?
Yeah.
You slow everything down. And if you're a weirdo like me, you turn the radio off. Do you ever do that? Where it's like, if you're lost, you have to turn the radio off.
You need silence.
You need silence. But it makes sense, right? You're quieting the mind, right? We need to turn down the volume so we can actually see what's going on. So when that stuff happens, and believe me, I don't have children yet. I'm very much looking forward to having children. I don't have children yet, but I can't even imagine what it's like you said, to come downstairs and have the kids, and they all need stuff, and they don't care that you're a salon owner. What do they care? They need their breakfast, and they want to play, and they want to smear poop on the wall or whatever. Whatever kids do. And so, yeah, exactly. So I get how that can be so daunting. And so it's just so important for us to realize that, we do have to take the time for ourselves. We do have to make sure that we're taking time for ourselves, and that we're going to be sometimes in environments where things are completely crazy. And so if we can find just a sliver of peace, right? Albert Einstein says you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. And so if we're in a sped up kind of mode, like if we got lost and needed to slow down the car, if we're in a sped up kind of mode, we're not going to see the opportunities. And so where we think when everything's crazy and going nuts, that's when we're supposed to be able to make all the decisions. That's the worst time to make decisions. It's like going to the grocery store when you're starving. You make horrible choices.
It's truly like the power in the pause.
Absolutely. And that's not, and the challenge with that is that it's such simple wisdom, but the challenge of that is that what I see a lot with my clients, and I saw it with my mom as well, and I've seen it with myself as well, is that you somehow will sometimes feel like you need to do something to deserve to rest. Like, yes. I can't take time for myself yet. Everybody else has to come first.
Especially when you have a team too, and
Yeah.
it's almost like you're making an excuse for, you know what, today I just want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was talking with Maya yesterday, a gal that was on our podcast. And I asked her before, I said, what do you do for fun? And she's like, I like to sit on the couch and watch Netflix by myself. Yep. And I said, thank you for actually just saying that and not being like, and I like to read 700 personal development books and I'm training for an Ironman and all that. Like, it's okay to do that if that's what brings you joy. It's about balance.
Right. And it's even more than okay. It's required.
Yeah.
Right. So, I was talking to a client about this the other day, and he was saying the same thing. He's like, one of my goals this year is to start taking off weekends. And I want to be able to do that by the end of the year. We're in January. And I said, why are we waiting until the end of the year for you to start taking
February,
weekends?
boom.
Yeah, exactly. And so he actually did it that weekend because we had this discussion, and we were talking about, I'm not a big cook at all. I can make one thing really well, and it's reservations. That's all I have. But I watch a lot of cooking shows because I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. And so I remember watching a lot of Gordon Ramsay shows, and they'll cook these steaks, but the steak is not allowed to be cut into until it rests.
Oh, yes. Otherwise, it's not juicy.
It's not juicy, and it's still cooking, right?
Important thing. I love to cook. So.
Well, thank God for you. But here's the thing: is that when you take the steak out of the pan, it's still cooking, even though it's resting. So we think that resting is apart from our business. It's a part of our business. Us resting, things are still cooking, even if we don't consciously believe that.
That's so important. I remember there's been 2 really distinct moments. So we're in year 9 of our company.
Amazing. Congratulations. It's huge.
Thank you. So we're just right behind you.
Yeah, that's right alongside.
And there's been 2 moments where I wanted to just quit everything.
Only 2. Congrats.
Well, that I was like legit.
Really at the edge.
Yeah. And one was when I lost a baby. I had a miscarriage, and my world just, like, I just couldn't I didn't have the capacity to hold or coach. And I just was like, I just can't do this anymore. I paused. I took a good 6 weeks off, which a lot of people don't think that you can do that in a coaching or online business. And, the world's not going to end if you don't post on social media for 6 weeks, like in a span of 9 years, and the other was when my son was born, April 2020, right after the world had ended, every spa in the country was shut down. I had no idea what was going to happen. And the newborn bubble, which very soon, eventually, hopefully you'll find out when the time is right. No pressure.
So my mom didn't call you before?
No, she didn't.
Because she can hear everything we're saying in Florida right now. Jewish mother, she can hear everything. Yeah.
When the time is right, you'll find out that the newborn bubble is insane. The sleep deprivation, the as a woman, the hormones that you're going through, and from what I imagine as the partner, like trying to support your partner, trying to support the baby, but there's just so much going on. And for me, you know, this was when we didn't know what COVID was, right? And I'm in DC, right? So there it was like, you know, the hospitals, we go to Walter Reed, all of the doctors were sent out to go to military ships and military to take care. So they were on divert. So they're like, well, if you go into labor, just go to the ER of a public hospital. I'm like, in a pandemic when yeah, it was so crazy. And so that time period, I said, I don't know how I can do this business. I don't know what's going on. And people need me they want that support. And I only have the capacity right now to care for my family because I don't know what's going on. I paused and we actually doubled our business that year.
Wow. And so what do you think it was about that pause that directly related to you guys having that kind of growth?
I think that I was able to recharge and regroup and just have that time for myself. And so when I was able to go back online, it was a lot of like, all right, let's do e-com. Let's pivot this way. Let's call our clients here. Because I mean, the spas were closed, right? So it was like Shopify, retail sales. Let's do virtual consultation. And there was just all these things. But why that story started is because I believe that in COVID, when everybody did have to stop, it was like a forced pause for so many spa owners. Something that came up for so many of them is I realized I was going 100 miles an hour this way, and I actually needed to take a left turn back there.
Yeah.
So our minds get so busy on what we think that we need, or that we're supposed to have this 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure business, or whatever the kind of goal is. When the reality is what makes you happy? Does it really matter if your spa hits 800,000 instead of $1 million?
Right.
If you're, you know, living the life that you need.
Yeah.
Right? So really getting in touch with that, I think, is super important.
That's huge. I mean, and that slowdown is so important. And I was actually talking to somebody recently who was just feeling really low in their job and everything, and literally said, life feels pointless. Right. And I've definitely been there before. I mean, I've suffered with terrible stress and anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation into my late 20s, early 30s. Like I know what that feels like. And it occurred to me to ask this person, is it true that life is pointless? Or is it that the points you think you're supposed to care about just don't align with who you are? Right. So if you're building a salon business and you're like, oh my God, you know, I can't hit the million. Life is pointless. Well, maybe that's a point that was never yours to begin with. Maybe it was a point of view that never needed to be yours to begin with. So what actually drives you? And if, to your point, if I were to make 800K instead of $1 million, but my quality of life was 3x what it would be at $1 million, and not to say you couldn't make $1 million and still have a great quality of life, but if you're at that spot, I'm picking 800K all day.
And to take that even further, I've noticed that some women in our community, they actually don't want to be entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And it's okay to give yourself permission to be an employee. Employees are great.
Yep.
You need employees, right? And you can still be a wonderful employee. I mean, it's really like digging in, taking that pause to understand, what is it that truly makes you happy? What is it that truly drives you? Because that is all that matters, right?
That's exactly
is the happiness that you feel. At the end of the day, you're not going to say, man, I wish I would have pushed harder to get that $1 million.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, I took a break. I took care of myself. I built meaningful relationships. You know, I mean, there was someone that I was talking to last year, and the question came up, you know, in the online space, it's like 30,000 for a mastermind, no big deal. You know, you don't think about it.
Right.
Like it's just that's how much things cost.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time, and something comes up and we work on the weekends and all of this stuff. What if we spent 10% of the time and energy that we've spent in building our businesses in investing in our relationships and spending time with the people that we loved? And that hit me like a ton of bricks, because even at this point in my career, 9 years in, 7-figure company, feel very proud of what we've accomplished. It's like, I want more than my business to have community and to have family and all of that, and really getting into that space where you don't just say that, but you're taking the actions to make that happen. And so everybody has to look at their own life and say, am I, what you were saying, is it aligned with what the points are for you?
Right. Yeah. Am I authentically living the life that I actually want to live? And to be okay with what may seem like an act of defiance to not follow the trend of hustle, hustle, hustle. Or if you're not making a certain amount of money, then you're not a serious entrepreneur. Like all of these narratives that have been created and crafted for the people who created and crafted them to continue that narrative. It's a, self-propagating loop. And to slow down enough to step back and say, what do I really value? Right? What are the things that really light me up? What are the things that bring joy in my life, like you were saying? And when they look at the blues, do you know about the blue zones that are all around the world?
Yes.
Yeah. So I went to Sardinia, which is one of the blue zones, and was hosting a Mind Valley event there. And they did all these studies of all these blue zones to figure out what it was that allowed these people to be the happiest people in the world.
There's actually a Blue Zones cookbook.
Is there really?
It's very good. I'll send it to you.
That sounds amazing.
Even though you don't cook.
Well, I'll find somebody to cook it. That would be amazing. And maybe I'll learn it at the same point. But of all the things they said, and it was movement and diet and all these different things, the number one thing was community.
Yes.
Community was the biggest predictor of longevity and health.
Well, Harvard did a 16-year study, and it was on studying happiness. I don't know if you've ever read or watched the TED Talk by Sean Aker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he references this study in his talk as well. And they were showing that it's not the amount of money. It's not the, after a certain point, you have to have food, shelter, safety, security, right? But after that, it truly is the people, your community, and the people were actually living longer that had community in their world. So
yeah, absolutely.
Vitally important.
And it's so important. And community, I want to expand on that for a second, if that's okay with you, because I think when people hear the word community, and myself as well, when I first started hearing that word, I think it feels like community feels like friendships, right? Like, people that you love and people that you like being around. For me, community is the people I can break down in front of, that I don't have to ever put on a mask, that I can show up and be whoever I'm being. And I'm somebody who, and as you said, I bring a lot of energy and I want to be joyful and everything, but that can be a burden too. Because what if I'm not feeling that day and I need to give myself permission to not show up that way when I walk in a room? Oh, I can't walk in a room and just be kind of down today because they're expecting this kind of thing, right? And there are some times for your business, you do have to turn it on when you don't feel it because there are people to be served. But if you're going to do that on that side of the spectrum, then we have to have on the other side of the spectrum a container that is safe enough to say, I need to be able to fall apart or fall to pieces in front of you and know that it's totally okay and I'm going to be supported through it. So to me, that's when I really say the people who are in my real community are the ones that I can do that with.
Yeah, but it starts because it's hard to make friends when you get older.
So hard, yeah, for sure.
It really is. And especially for me, moving so many times, I feel like I have a lot of great friends. Nobody lives in the same place, right? And that happens, right? I imagine for you travel so much, and but really building that community, it takes work, it takes effort. And when in the beginning of the year, I did actually it was in September, we did kind of this exercise of we have a Pure Formed mastermind, and it was 7 ladies. We were on a trip in Vail. And we were picking our word of the year, what we wanted to call in and all of this stuff. And mine was radical honesty. And so I made the commitment to myself. I talked to my husband about it everything that I do, whether it's in my business, whether it's, in my community, wherever, I want to just be radically honest with myself, who I am, what I want, what I need. And I started reaching out to some of the moms at my kids' school and said, I'm trying to build community. I'm looking for friendship that's radically honest. Is that something you're interested in?
Love that.
And I'm kind of a direct person. And some people are like, what? Like, no, we just talk about the kids and do play dates.
Right.
But there's been others that are like, yeah, I'm in, And it takes work and energy to do that, but to really the people that can come over to your house that you don't have to clean up the house before they get there.
That's it. That's the one.
That's
yes.
it.
That is the one. Or you could even sit on the couch with them. And I've had this with Ajit and Nita, who we're both very close with, that they are two of the people where we could all be on a couch on our phones, not talking. And we feel so at home. We feel so like it's family, right? Yes. And so I think it's so important. And what you did is you're illustrating what I think is a really important part of creating community, is that everybody wants connection. And honestly, everybody wants vulnerability, but nobody wants to go first.
Yeah.
And you went first. And for the people
and
that
I
you
got
spoke
told
to,
no.
and you got told no by some, but you got told yes by others who otherwise you may never have known that they wanted to connect in that way, but you had to go first. So I love that you did that. And radical honesty perfectly fits in with that.
And you'd be surprised. So I'm actually hosting a women's circle in DC, and you know, being in the online space, but then having my husband who's in tech, and then being in DC where it's like everybody's a rocket scientist or whatever, you know. And I actually, one gal I invited, and she comes from the tech world. She's a space person. And I text her and I said, you know, I'm hosting this women's circle and I would love if you came. If you don't want to, I'm not offended by any way, but she's a really cool person. And she texted me back. She said, I had to Google what a women's circle was, but it sounds really cool and I'm in. Nice. And so it's like, you'd be surprised the people that that you're like, oh no, they would never be into that woo stuff, or they would never be in. It's like we're still all human, whatever avenue you go down.
Absolutely. I love that. That's so funny. I love that. I thought that she had to look up women's circle. That's fantastic. That's so great.
She's
bringing
awesome.
Those worlds together, though, bringing those worlds together is so important too. Diversity of thought, diversity of intention. Like, I love that you're doing that. That's so awesome.
I'm working on it little by little. All right. So tell me, I mean, this conversation has kind of gone all over the place, which is great.
Feels like life. Yeah.
But is there anything else that you want to add or you feel called to add to make this episode feel complete for these spa owners, for these women, for these activists?
Yeah.
To be willing to do what it takes.
Yeah. Well, you know, I grew up in a salon environment, right? And I was the kid in the corner doing my homework after school because my single mom would be working in the salon and I had nowhere else to go. And so I saw that. I saw my mom through beauty school. I saw all these things and I was always very impressed by her. Like, I know there have been things before where people may think that, you know, beauty school is less than traditional college. Traditional college in a lot of ways is a huge capitalist racket, but besides the point,
that's another episode.
That's a whole other episode. But to me, I didn't know any different than mom's out there doing what she needs to do to take care of the family. There was no like less than, greater than thing. She was just doing the thing. And so I think number one is to really celebrate who you are and the place that you're at right now. And I remember there was so I've had, you know, this weight loss as well, this big weight loss. And I was contacted at one point by this guy, Cal Fussman. He's a fairly well-known journalist. And he was doing a story that was documenting 1 million pounds of weight loss across the globe, right? Like stories of people who collectively have lost 1 million pounds. And so we do this whole interview. And at the end, he says, when you get a second, can you send me some of your hero pictures? And I said, oh, absolutely. I just had a photo shoot 2 weeks ago. I have all kinds of cool pictures to send you. And he goes, no, I don't think you understand. Your hero pictures are when you were 330 pounds. Because that was the guy that decided something needed to change. That's the guy that took action to start the transformation. And so for anybody listening to or watching this who may feel like it's not happening fast enough, or why isn't this happening? And what should I be doing differently? And maybe I'm not cut out for this. The fact that you already took the action and you're in the place now to even be asking that question says much more about you and your work ethic and your integrity and your passion and your conviction than you may be giving yourself credit for. So please just give yourself more space, grace, and celebration for what you've done. And I know there's always more to do, but they've done the studies, and the people who are happier are not the ones that say, sure, I've done this, but there's so much more to do. It's, wow, look how much I've already accomplished, and how fun would it be to continue and see what else I can do.
I love that. I love that. And I would argue, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I would argue that growing up around an entrepreneurial mom helped influence you, right?
Absolutely.
Did she own her salon, or she was working in the salon?
Both, yeah. So she worked in salons earlier on, then she owned a salon for a while, for probably, I think it was probably 3 or 4 years. And then she went to work for some other people after that, and she kept doing nails for years and years. So I saw that. So to me, it was never odd to not see her go to like a 9 to 5. Like that wasn't weird to me. It was fine. And my family is kind of all that way. And they all followed what they really loved. It doesn't mean they were all wildly financially successful, but at least they were doing the things they actually loved. And, you know, my uncle, for example, who passed away a couple years ago from cancer, he had a voiceover career and started a voiceover company. Never got rich off of it, but really loved the work he was doing. And when it was time for him to go, he actually refused treatment because he said, I have actually done everything that I want to do. I'm okay. I'm ready to go.
What a beautiful feeling.
It's amazing. And we should all be so lucky to go on our own terms and to be so happy with that choice because of the choices we've made while we've been here.
All right, everybody, let that all sink in. This is an episode that you might want to listen to twice. This is an episode that, you know, really, if you're feeling overwhelmed, overworked, defeated, go back to the tools that we shared in this episode and know that you are capable to accomplish whatever is in your heart's desire. So if you want to keep this conversation going, please head on over to the Spa Marketing Made Easy Facebook group, and we'll catch you on the next episode.